Now we're going to talk about color and the actual selection of your oil paints. I typically paint with Winsor & Newton or Gamblin oils, and as you can see, I have these large 200 milliliter tubes of paint. But if you're first getting started, it's certainly fine to use some smaller tubes just to understand what colors you like to work with, as well as the style of painting that you're doing. Maybe you are thinning out your paint a lot and you're not using quite as much as a really highly textured style. It helps to understand a couple things about color before you begin constructing your selection of paints, also known as your palette. And the main thing that I would impart to you is that you generally want to stick to the principle of a limited palette. A limited palette can be constructed in a couple different ways. The two main ways that people talk about palettes are in RGB and CMYK. CMYK effectively stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and key, which is black. And you can use these to achieve really any color on the color wheel within that pigment selection that you've made. Today we're going to talk about RGB, which is red, green, blue. Really what this comes down to is having a limited palette actually of red, blue, and yellow. I would recommend that in addition to a red, blue, and a yellow, you also have a white as well as a paint to darken your mixtures, raw umber, raw sienna, or burnt sienna. So really, if you want to keep it super simple, when you go to the art supply store, I would start with just 5 things. I would start with titanium white, alizarin crimson, phthalo blue, and cadmium yellow, or another maybe warmer yellow. And we'll talk about warm versus cool in a minute. So in working with this limited palette, know that you might not necessarily be able to get the exact colors that you're hoping for. So if you are mixing a specific red and a specific blue, you might not get the purple that you had in your mind, but you're still getting a purple that you can modify with adding some amount of yellow, and you can change its value by working with that light and that dark paint. And hopefully this will get you close enough to your end result. Now you might want to expand on this right from the get-go. The limited palette does not necessarily mean that you paint all of your paintings with these colors. You make a conscious selection of color when you're going into each individual painting. Color also has a property which people refer to as the warmth or the temperature. So you might have something like a warm red or a cool red, a warm blue or a cool blue, and so on. So if you want to expand on your palette right from the get-go, I would recommend again having that white and that dark, as well as having one of each in the matrix of warm, cool for a red, a yellow, and a blue. So what this might look like would be a cool red like alizarin crimson and a warm red like some sort of scarlet. It might be a warm yellow like cadmium yellow and a cool yellow like lemon yellow. And it might be a cool blue like phthalo blue and a warm blue like French ultramarine. Again, I've linked this in my website and on my Patreon. So if you need a handy document which just outlines all of the things that you might want to acquire, feel free to check that out.